Sherlock and Watson returned to their lodgings on Baker Street, each lost in their own thoughts. The events of the past few days had left them both exhausted and on edge. They were both concerned about the mysterious attack on Sherlock and the implications it might have for their mission. As they entered the sitting room, Mrs. Hudson came bustling in with a tray of tea and biscuits. Sherlock poured himself a cup of tea and settled into his armchair. "Watson, I believe we have a new lead," Sherlock said, his eyes gleaming with excitement. "What is it?" Watson asked, leaning forward in his chair. "I was doing some research on the Chinese ambassador and I discovered that he has a nephew who is a known member of a secret society that operates in China. This society is known to engage in criminal activities and they have connections to a powerful Chinese general. Do you think this secret society is behind the attack on you?" Watson asked. "It's possible," Sherlock said thoughtfully, "but we need more information. I think it's time we paid a visit to the Chinese embassy." The next morning, Sherlock and Watson made their way to the embassy. They were met at the gate by the ambassador's secretary, who escorted them inside to a small sitting room. After a few moments, the ambassador himself entered the room. He was a tall, imposing man with a stern expression. "What brings you here, Mr. Holmes?" he asked. "I'm here to discuss the recent attack on me and to see if we can work together to prevent any further incidents," Sherlock replied. The ambassador's expression softened slightly. "Of course. We are equally concerned about the safety of our diplomats and citizens." Sherlock leaned forward. "Ambassador, I have reason to believe that a secret society operating in China may be responsible for the attack on me. Do you have any knowledge of such a group?" The ambassador hesitated for a moment before responding. "I am aware of such a society. They are known to be involved in criminal activities, and they have connections to a powerful general in China." Sherlock raised an eyebrow. "Do you have any information on this general?" The ambassador leaned back in his chair. "He is a ruthless man, known for his ambition and his willingness to use any means necessary to achieve his goals. He is also very well connected and has powerful allies both in China and abroad." Sherlock nodded thoughtfully. "Thank you, Ambassador. You've been very helpful." As they left the embassy, Watson couldn't help but feel uneasy. "Sherlock, do you think we can trust the ambassador?" Sherlock shrugged. "Trust is a difficult thing to come by, Watson, but we have no choice but to work with him if we want to succeed in our mission." They returned to Baker Street, where Sherlock began to pore over his notes and research. Watson watched as Sherlock scribbled down notes and muttered to himself, lost in thought. Suddenly, there was a knock at the door. Sherlock leapt to his feet, his hand going to his revolver. Watson rushed to his side, his own weapon at the ready. "Who is it?" Sherlock called out. "It's me, Lestrade," came the reply. Sherlock breathed a sigh of relief and holstered his weapon. He opened the door to find the inspector standing on the doorstep, looking haggard and worried. "Sherlock, there's been a development. We've intercepted a message from the Chinese embassy. They're planning an attack on the British Navy." Sherlock's eyes widened. "When is the attack planned for?" "Tonight," Lestrade said grimly. "We need to act fast if we want to prevent any further attacks." Sherlock nodded, knowing that time was of the essence. He turned to Watson. "Come, old friend, we have work to do." With that, the three men left the room and headed out into the streets of London, determined to catch the perpetrators before they could cause any more harm. After the intense events of the past few days, Sherlock and Watson were both physically and mentally drained. They had spent countless hours poring over files and analyzing data, trying to uncover the details of a potential terrorist attack. But despite their best efforts, they still didn't have a complete picture of what was going on. Sherlock was restless, unable to shake the feeling that they were missing something crucial. He paced back and forth in their makeshift office, running his hands through his hair in frustration. "We need more information," he muttered to Watson. "We can't make a move until we know exactly what they're planning." Watson nodded in agreement. "But how do we get that information? We've already exhausted every source we have." Suddenly, Sherlock's phone rang. He picked it up and listened intently to the voice on the other end. "Who was that?" Watson asked, curious. "It was Mycroft," Sherlock replied. "He's managed to get us access to some classified documents that might be relevant to our case." With renewed energy, Sherlock and Watson rushed to Mycroft's office to review the documents. As they read through the pages, they finally began to piece together the terrorist group's plan. "They're going to launch a bomb attack on the Parliament," Sherlock exclaimed. "They're planning to cause destruction and chaos." Watson's eyes widened in alarm. "That's a serious threat. We need to stop them." Sherlock nodded in agreement. "But how? They'll have their best operatives working on this." "We have to think outside the box," Watson replied. "What if we could create a diversion, something that would draw their attention away from the Parliament?" Sherlock's eyes lit up. "That's it. We'll stage a fake target for the terrorists to attack. We'll create a false target that they'll think is the real deal, while we go after their own weak points." They quickly put their plan into action, setting up a fake target for the terrorists to attack. Meanwhile, Sherlock and Watson used their own skills to infiltrate the terrorist group and gather intel. As they worked, they could feel the tension mounting. They knew that any wrong move could mean the difference between success and failure. Finally, after hours of painstaking work, they had what they needed. They had uncovered the location of the terrorists' hideout, and they were ready to launch their attack. But as they prepared to make their move, they suddenly heard a loud explosion outside. Alarmed, they rushed to the window to see what was happening. Down below, they saw a truck loaded with explosives that had rammed into the Parliament building, causing massive destruction and chaos. They could see the panic and chaos on the streets as people tried to flee from the scene. Without hesitation, Sherlock and Watson sprang into action. They quickly made their way to the scene of the attack and started helping the victims, calling for backup and medical assistance. In the end, they emerged victorious, but not unscathed. Both Sherlock and Watson had suffered minor injuries, but they were relieved to have thwarted the terrorists' plan and saved countless lives. As they made their way back to their office, Sherlock couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. They had worked together to stop a major threat to their country, and they had done it with their own unique brand of intelligence and resourcefulness. "This is what we do, Watson," he said with a grin. "We solve problems, and we do it damn well."